making headlines. The finance minister announces that new financial measures aimed at bolstering the nation's economic development and growth will be implemented in a way that avoids placing any additional burden on the public. BML announces the reversal of the US dollar transaction limits that were implemented earlier this year. And President of the ECM states that competent leaders can be elected to manage the country under the democratic system if the right to vote is exercised properly.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Hello and welcome to PSMNEWS in English with me, Mariam Shawshat. Minister of Finance Dr. Mohammad Shafiq announces that new financial measures aimed at bolstering the nation's economic development and growth will be implemented in a way that avoids placing any additional burden on the public. Speaking at a press conference held at the President's office, Dr. Shafiq outlined the government's extensive efforts to address the current economic challenges. He revealed that modifications have been made to financial policies and the management of state-owned companies as part of these efforts, with ongoing discussions involving key stakeholders. The minister expressed optimism that these initiatives would soon yield positive results. Dr. Shafiq also emphasized that the government's fiscal strategy includes a priority focus on ensuring the repayment of $500 million sukuk. He highlighted the increasing reliance on dollars, particularly in the trade and transportation sectors, as observed by Bank of Maldives (BML). In response, the government is committed to boosting dollar inflows and is encouraging all banks to support this initiative. In addition, Minister of Economic Development and Trade Mohammad Said projected positive economic growth for both this year and the next year. He acknowledged the economic difficulties faced upon President Dr. Mohammad Muizzu's assumption of office, but reiterated the President's commitment to revitalizing and expanding the economy. Minister Said also underscored the efforts of the Cabinet and the Economic Council in promoting economic growth. He highlighted initiatives aimed at reducing state expenditure and ensuring revenue stability. Additionally, he announced that a report detailing changes in financial systems and fiscal estimates for the next 3 years is forthcoming. The report will reflect ongoing efforts by Parliament and the Development Bank of the Maldives and will include significant updates related to the Foreign Investment Bill. Minister Said expressed confidence that these policies would positively influence economic growth this year and next, leading to a more stable and enhanced economy. Meanwhile, Minister of Foreign Affairs Musa Zamir announced that the government has received positive indications in its efforts to secure funds from various countries. During the press conference, Foreign Minister revealed that during his recent visit to China at the invitation of the Chinese Foreign Minister, discussions were held to explore ways to facilitate the repayment of loans owed to China. Bank of Maldives (BML) announces the reversal of US dollar transaction limits that were announced earlier.
The decision comes after the bank's regulatory authority, Maldives Monetary Authority (MMA), issued instructions to amend the earlier changes. The initial measures introduced by BML included the suspension of foreign transactions allowances for both existing and new debit cards as well as new credit cards when linked to MVR accounts. Additionally, for existing standard and gold credit cards, the monthly foreign transaction limit was reduced to $100. These changes sparked widespread criticism, with many individuals voicing their concerns on social media. In response, BML has now lifted the previously announced dollar limits. As a result, BML debit and credit cards will have a foreign transaction allowance of $250. Furthermore, Maldivians residing abroad will be granted a monthly allowance of $750. In an earlier statement, BML explained that the initial changes were based on a year-long analysis of card usage. The bank noted that it had purchased approximately $60 million in foreign currency from customers this year, while card usage far exceeded that amount. BML clarified that customers using dollar credit cards and debit cards linked to dollar accounts remain unaffected and can continue to use their available balances. The bank also recommended that customers with recurring international payments consider linking their debit cards to dollar accounts to facilitate overseas transactions.
President of the Elections Commission of Maldives ECM Fuad Tawfiq states that competent leaders can be elected to manage the country under the democratic system if the right to vote is exercised properly. In his address commemorating the Voters' Day, ECM's President Fuad stated that a government is formed and run by the residents of the country. Highlighting that residents are the ones who elect government leaders, members for the parliament and representatives for the respective constituencies, Fuad underscored the crucial importance of ensuring the right to vote is well exercised. He added that voting to elect competent leaders was a responsibility of all residents. Furthermore, Fuad Tawfiq stated that the right to vote was given by the Constitution, highlighting the need to exercise this right beneficially. He stressed the need to educate the upcoming generations on the importance of casting votes, noting that elections play a pivotal role in improving the situation and the running of the country. He concluded his speech calling on all individuals to exercise their right to vote outlined by the Constitution. This year marks the first year in which Maldives celebrates Voters' Day. ECM has decided that Voters' Day will be observed annually on August 25th. Minister of Economic Development and Trade Mohammed Said accuses the Maldivian Democratic Party MDP of leading the country's finances into a crisis by disrupting established systems. He made the statement in response to accusations made by chairperson of MDP Fayaz Ismail, who claimed that the current government was exerting undue influence over the Bank of Maldives (BML). In a social media post, Minister Said expressed dismay that a former economic minister who had burdened the nation with a century of debt and pushed the economy into uncharted territory would make such claims. He accused MDP of turning the entire system upside down and leading the country's finances into a crisis. He also said that the nation's interests should take priority over individual agendas. The government has announced that it is currently working to improve the country's economic situation. As such, it is implementing crucial measures to reduce expenditure and making significant changes in the operations of state-owned enterprises, SOEs, and the ministries. Minister of Climate Change, Environment and Energy Tariq Ibrahim reveals plans to develop the nature park in Formula City with additional services.
In an interview with PSMNEWS during his visit to Formula, Minister Tariq emphasized the significance of the island's nature park as a vital natural attraction, especially given the growth of local tourism in the area. He also noted that both the Formula City Council and the management of the park are keen on expanding services for tourists and improving accessibility. Additionally, Minister Tariq said the development project would include the construction of additional boardwalks and the improvement of roads to facilitate better views of the surrounding trees. He also committed to collaborating with the Formula City Council to create a plan for the park's future development. Furthermore, Minister Tariq reaffirmed the government's commitment to developing a nature park in each atoll across the Maldives, in addition to enhancing existing parks. He also said that all nature parks in the country would be fully developed within the next 5 years. The Formula Nature Park was opened on September 14, 2018. It is an ecotourism site that includes the marshes and wetlands around the island's lake. The park was established under the Climate Change Adaptation Project funded by the European Union (EU) to protect the wetlands and mangroves of Formula. It also offers visitors a chance to enjoy the natural beauty of the area and engage in activities like canoeing and paddle boating in the lake.
The State Electric Company Limited, Stelco, decides to develop an electric vehicle charging system aiming to encourage the use of electric vehicles. Reiterating the objectives of President Dr. Mohammed Muizzu to reduce the carbon footprint, Managing Director of Stelco, Hussein Fahmi, stated the company strives to ensure full support in achieving this overarching goal. As such, he revealed that the company is determined to increase the demand for electric vehicles and provide full support and utmost convenience to individuals willing to purchase the vehicles and those already utilizing electric vehicles. Under these efforts, Fahmi disclosed plans to establish an electric vehicle charging system next to Stelco's head office. He stated that significant discussions were held with the Ministry of Cities, Local Government and Public Works expressing optimism on the ministry's full support. The managing director stated that efforts are underway to ensure that the electric vehicle charging station can charge two-wheelers in addition to four-wheeled vehicles. Maldives Ports Limited MPL and Qatar Airways signed a memorandum of understanding on the provision of cargo services in MPL's sea-to-air transshipment service.
The MOU was signed by the Chief Executive Officer CEO of MPL Mohammad Wajih Ibrahim and the General Service Agent of Qatar Airways, East Travel Maldives' Managing Director Mohammad Firag. Under the agreement, Qatar Airways will provide sea-to-air cargo transshipment services. Speaking at the signing ceremony, MPL CEO Wajih stated following the launch of the sea-to-air services in May, the Maldives has re-exported 25,191 clothing packages to various destinations across the globe, including Italy, Germany, United States, US, Canada, and Turkey. The first shipment was a garment shipment from Bangladesh. The CEO underlined the government's objective of expanding the economic activity of the nation and increasing the revenue. He revealed the sea-to-air transshipment services generated a revenue of $20,000 within a month. Meanwhile, Managing Director of Ace Travels Maldives, Firag stated he sees a bright future for the sea-to-air services. Highlighting that Qatar Airways operates its flights to various destinations worldwide, Firag said that the airline had the capacity to carry 50 tons of goods. Sea-to-air transshipment services were introduced with an aim to shorten the duration involved in shipping merchandise by sea and provide prompt assistance. This hybrid model, provided in collaboration with MACL and other international airlines, aims to meet demands within the commercial industry efficiently. MPL highlighted the key benefit of increased flights to various countries resulting from this service, typically offered by foreign countries to expedite the export process.
Ministry of Fisheries and Ocean Resources announces that illegal fishing activities will be closely monitored as line fishing resumes across Maldives.
Line fishing, a traditional practice in the Maldives, was previously suspended following a directive from the European Union (EU) calling for reforms. The practice, which was permitted between 2012 and 2019, was halted but has now been reinstated by the ministry. The renewed line fishing activities will specifically target species such as big-eye tuna, yellowfin tuna and swordfish, with licenses for these activities now available. The ministry has also outlined regulations for the processing and export of dead sharks caught during line fishing. Although sharks typically comprise 3% to 4% of the total catch, the ministry has implemented measures to reduce shark bycatch. These include setting lines at a depth of 60 meters and allowing only the processing of dead sharks. To ensure compliance and prevent illegal fishing, the ministry will enforce several strict measures. Fishermen will be required to depart from designated harbors, obtain departure clearance before setting out, and install cameras on their vessels. Additionally, all vessels engaged in line fishing must be equipped with tracking devices that detect the proximity of other similarly equipped vehicles, a measure aimed at curbing the illegal exchange of fish at sea. Line fishing will be permitted within 100 miles of the Maldives Exclusive Economic Zone (EEZ) with specific restrictions. It will not be allowed in the northernmost region of the country, where the majority of fishermen are currently active. Instead, line fishing will be permitted from the eastern and western regions of Addo City to the southern part of Alifushi in Ra Atoll. The ministry noted that the reopening of line fishing will bring significant benefits to the Maldives, with many fishermen already expressing interest in resuming the practice.
Beekeepers across France say it has been a disastrous year for honey, with bees starving to death and production plummeting by up to 80%.
Michael Isambert, a beekeeper in Saint-Avold-les-Roches in central France, lost 70% of his honey and had to feed his colonies sugar to help them survive after a cold, rainy spring. A beehive typically produces 15 kilos or 33 pounds of honey a year, but this time Isambard said his farm had only produced between 5 and 7 kilos. When it rains, bees don't fly, they don't go out, so they eat their own honey reserves. Low temperatures and heavy rainfall have prevented bees from gathering enough pollen and flowers from producing nectar, which the insects collect to make honey. Bad weather has affected honey producers countrywide, with spring production dropping by 80% in some regions, figures that summer harvests will struggle to offset, said the French National Beekeeping Union. Rainfall rose by 45% on the yearly average, the French National Beekeeping Union said in a letter to its local branches. With weather conditions that have been catastrophic in many regions, with abundant rain and low temperatures until late, many beekeepers' viability is under threat. French beekeepers had already been reeling from dealing with several seasons of scorching heat and delayed frosts, according to the French National Beekeeping Union, making this year, the Black Year, even worse. Honeymakers earlier this year protested against unfair competition by foreign producers, which led to the government releasing €5 million in aid. French consumers eat on average 45,000 tons of honey per year, about 20,000 of tons which is produced in France, according to the left-wing Peasants' Confederation Union.
Israel launches airstrikes into Lebanon, saying it had thwarted a large-scale Hezbollah attack, while the Lebanese group said it had carried out its own raid to avenge a top commander's killing.
The Israeli military said its fighter jets had destroyed thousands of Hezbollah rocket launchers aimed toward northern Israel, and some were aimed toward central Israel. The powerful Iran-backed Lebanese group countered that Israel was making empty claims of having thwarted an attack and said its own operation for Sunday was completed and accomplished. Hezbollah has traded near-daily cross-border fire with Israeli forces throughout the Gaza war in a campaign Hezbollah says is in support of Palestinian ally Hamas. But fears of a wider regional conflagration soared after an Israeli strike on Beirut in late July killed top Hezbollah commander Fuad Shukr, prompting wars of revenge. Hezbollah said its militants began an air attack with a large number of drones, followed with more than 320 rockets launched at enemy positions. The Lebanese movement said its attack was an initial response to Shukur's killing, adding that it had ended with total success, although the extent of the damage on the Israeli side was not immediately clear. An Israeli military spokesman said the fire from Hezbollah was part of a larger attack that was planned, and that the military were able to thwart a big part of it this morning. The government declared a 48-hour state of emergency. However, by 7 a.m., flights had resumed at Israel's main international airport after a brief suspension. Military spokesman Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari told a media briefing that the Israeli strikes were meant to remove the threats aimed at the citizens of Israel. Lebanon's Health Ministry reported at least one death in an Israeli strike on a vehicle in the country's south. No casualties were immediately reported in Israel.
Bangladesh Metro Railway in the notoriously congested capital Dhaka resumes more than a month after it was closed during the peak of student-led protests that eventually toppled the Prime Minister.
Much in the troubled South Asian nation remains in political turmoil since the revolution that ousted Sheikh Hasina and ended her 15-year-long iron-fisted rule, but on Sunday, the trains at least were back on track. Dhaka is one of the world's most populated cities, and the railway is a critical transport link in the sprawling megacity of some 20 million people. Bankar Shaheen Sultana said she was delighted her commute to work was a relaxed affair after weeks of car-clogged gridlock on the roads. The elevated train network was closed in mid-July during the student-led protest. In the deadly violence, which would see hundreds of people killed until Hasina quit and fled the country by helicopter on August 5th, the stations were vandalized by a mob. The resumption of metro services is a key sign of a return to normal daily life. Its reopening was ordered by the new caretaker government led by Nobel Peace Prize laureate Muhammad Yunus, 84. Hasina's government was accused of widespread abuses, including the mass detention and extrajudicial killing of political opponents. But Dhaka's metro, inaugurated in 2022, is seen by many as one of the most significant infrastructure endeavors of Hasina's otherwise tarnished tenure. It was an instant hit in the congested city where commuting by road is a source of massive frustration. Local researchers say that the capital's economy loses upwards of $3 billion each year in lost work time due to traffic jams, often worsened by regular street protests and monsoonal downpours. Pictures released by Hasina's office while she was still in office showed her weeping at the sight of a vandalized metro station in the outlying Dhaka suburb.
4 days before the Paris Paralympic Games began, the Paralympic flame was lit next to the English hospital where the idea for the competition was born.
British Paralympic athletes Gregor Iwan and Helen Rainsford battled pouring rain to light the flame. The Paralympic movement dates back to 1948, when German neurologist Ludwig Gottmann organized sporting events for injured war veterans at Stoke Mandeville Hospital, northwest of London. The flame was lit in a stadium not far from the hospital where Gottmann worked. This is the first time since 2012 and the London Games that the Paralympic flame has been lit in Stoke Mandeville. Behind this flame is a powerful message of peace and other strong values, said Tony Estengut, president of the Paris 2024 Organizing Committee for the Olympic and Paralympic Games, hailing Goodman's vision. The Stoke Mandeville Games were held to coincide with the 1948 London Olympics on grounds next to the hospital, which were then developed into the stadium where Saturday's ceremony took place. The first Paralympic Games took place in Rome in 1960 with 400 athletes competing from 23 countries. The flame will pass through the Channel Tunnel on Sunday with 24 British torchbearers, taking it halfway before handing it over to 24 French torchbearers. Then 12 torches will travel across France from Sunday to Wednesday. The flame will then reach Paris and the Olympic Cauldron located in the Tuileries Gardens. 1,000 torchbearers will take turns in around 50 cities. The main flame coming from Stoke Mandeville will pass through Calais, Arras, Amiens, Lourdes and Chambly before arriving in the Paris region. The Paralympic Games will begin on August 28. Some 2.5 million tickets have been put on sale for the event. As of Wednesday, just over 1.75 million had gone, with around a dozen sports almost sold out. Around 4,400 athletes will compete in 549 events, which will take place in 18 competition sites, including 16 identical to their Olympic counterparts.
Egypt's Tourism and Antiquities Ministry opens the historic Bimasritan Al Muayyad Sheikh, one of the oldest hospitals in Cairo, following extensive renovations carried out in partnership between Egypt and the United States Agency for International Development, USAID.
The Bimaristan, which was a hospital constructed by the Mamluk Sultan Al Muayyad Sheikh, is located near Cairo Citadel in South El Salah Street. The restored site was unveiled during a ceremony attended by key officials from Egypt and US. Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities, Mohammad Ismail, emphasized the significance of integrating civil society in the preservation process, highlighting that the restoration of Bimaristan Al Muayyad is part of a broader initiative that includes over 8 historical buildings. The restoration aligns with the broader strategy to use these sites as cultural hubs, encouraging local communities to engage with and preserve their heritage. Deputy Tourism Minister Yomna Al-Bahar announced plans to offer the 8 sites after finishing their restoration for investment, with the aim of enhancing the visitor experience through entertainment, artistic and cultural services that will also benefit the surrounding communities. U.S. Ambassador to Egypt, Hero Mustafa Garg, highlighted the long-standing partnership between the two countries, noting that the U.S. government has invested over $140 million in the conservation of Egypt's cultural heritage over the past 30 years. The reopening of Bimaristan Al Muayyad Sheikh marks a significant step in preserving Egypt's rich cultural heritage while promoting community involvement and sustainable tourism in Old Cairo.
Well, that's all we have for you right now. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more news updates. Have a good evening. Goodbye.